physician-assisted suicide is not taken into consideration, the patient could potentially take the act into their own hands. This treatment is commonly brought upon patients who are terminal or are aware of the difficult symptoms they are going to face. Yet not everyone can face the pain. Some patients would rather die now than continue to suffer for another day, week, or months. With this mindset, patients could harm themselves or even take their own life in a gruesome way. As a result, the patient's family would be devastated, and a doctor would feel guilty for not being able to help the patient, and that they died in a painful style rather than falling to a peaceful sleep. If the doctor had performed this treatment, the patient would have died at ease, and the family could have had the chance to say their goodbyes. Instead, the family would be notified that their child had taken their own life and they would never see them again. In source 5, a doctor had stated that he had a patient whose bones were breaking from advanced cancer and consciously stopped eating and drinking. It took him about 10 days to die. How long would you be able to handle that never-ending pain? Would you want to suffer 10 days more or less going through that pain? Or would you want all that pain and fear to stop with one easy treatment? With physician-assisted suicide, no one has to suffer through what they don't want to, and no one should have the thoughts to want to die, but sometimes it's the only way they can reach peace. No one should receive that peace by the account of their own hands.
1 minute, 22 seconds. Rebuttal.
With the mindset that we should not allow these patients to die in gruesome ways, then why should we allow for the public to die in gruesome ways when thousands kill themselves who are not terminally ill every year? With this mindset, then I guess we should legalize all forms of suicide. But obviously, that is not the route we should take.
21 seconds. Point 4. Con.
Okay, so one issue that a lot of people don't really think about when discussing physician-assisted suicide is the negative impacts and the slippery slope that it would cause when talking about other forms of suicide. For example, who draws the line on when a patient can decide when they want to choose to end their life? We could open up the suicide to depression, mental illnesses, sadness, or even something as simple as economic instability or family problems. Why should we allow these people to choose to end their lives when I think we all know from experience that life can get better from these almost unnecessary sadnesses?
As just stated by Maya, legalization of physician-assisted suicide will lead the U.S. down a slippery slope. According to Source 1, it has been demonstrated that the highest cost of medical care exists the last 6 months of life. We must resist advocating for physician-assisted suicide as an alternative to spending money caring for these patients. We as physicians must avoid the so-called slippery slope of attempting to save money by doing less for our patients rather than rendering the proper care for them. To substitute physician-assisted suicide for care represents an abandonment of the patient by the physician. Health insurance will stop providing for end-of-life services, and death will become a popular option for patients who might not even die for at least a decade. The sad reality is the U.S. saving money instead of people. Further explaining this, Oregon is often used as an example where legalized physician-assisted suicide has worked well. It is widely assumed that if a terminally ill individual qualifies for a lethal prescription, he or she automatically qualifies for hospice care. Not true. In actuality, criteria for physician-assisted suicide in Oregon are more liberal than eligibility for hospice care. Therefore, in states with legal physician-assisted suicide, patients, due to economic issues, can actually feel that death is the only way out. In 2016, many patients in legalized states qualified for lethal prescriptions, but not hospice care. That is the slippery slope. That is how America is failing people who are facing the end of their lives, and how America is failing family members of those who are terminally ill.
2+. Rebuttal.
So Maya posed a question. Where do we draw the line when people get to choose? And we say when they are determined terminally ill by professionals who have gone to school for 10 plus years or whatever. How long do doctors go to school? 10 plus years. We'll just go with that number. Just don't fact check it. But that's who decides. You don't just have the random hobo on the side of the street. He gets to die now. These are trained professionals who have diagnosed these people terminally ill, and that's when the decision is made to answer Maya's question or the opposing side's question. I don't want to make it personal.
And clearly, and one point that seems to kind of be ignored is that when you have a terminal illness, you are going to die. It's just a matter of how long, and oftentimes the treatment is really just kind of prolonging your suffering, and the whole Hippocratic Oath and do no harm is really kind of ignored during this, because by prolonging the patient's life when they have a terminal illness, you're putting them through excruciating pain that they don't want to be in before they ultimately die. So it's really unnecessary suffering that could easily be alleviated through physician-assisted suicide.
1 plus 0.5.
Throughout this debate, we have discussed many factors of why or why not to legalize physician-assisted suicide. The most important is the well-being of a patient. Patients who want this treatment mostly want to die with dignity. As powerfully stated in Source B by Brittany Maynard, my glioblastoma is going to kill me, and that's out of my control. I've discussed with many experts how I would die from it, and it's a terrible, terrible way to die. Being able to choose to go with dignity is less terrifying. Statistically, patients choose this treatment when they are terminally ill with cancer or AIDS, which both kill their victims in horrifying and painful deaths that people should not have to experience and their families should not have to witness. Patients may also feel they are a burden, they have lost their independence, and feel they will lose control of their bodies and minds. No one should have to feel like this, and those who oppose death with dignity choose to reduce terminally ill patients to their mere breathing and heartbeat, because by the end of their natural lives, they're already dead. They lost themselves to these terrible diseases when they lost the ability to use the bathroom or walk outside or change their own clothes. This is why, according to Source D, over 80% of the public would like the opportunity to choose physician-assisted suicide under certain circumstances, because for their own mental and physical well-being, they need the right to choose death with dignity. We do it to our pets, not out of cruelty, but compassion, which is what PAS is, a kinder alternative to the unthinkable deaths that await hundreds of terminally ill Americans.
1 minute, 22 seconds. Rebuttal.
Cancer is a terrible thing to have. AIDS is a terrible way to die. But something that we often ignore in our public is when people are diagnosed with depression. How do we treat these people with depression? If we theoretically allow for AIDS patients and cancer patients to die with dignity, then why not let these people who suffer mentally every hour of the day to also die with dignity? Obviously, that is not the moral route we should take, because it's either all okay or none of it's okay. And if it's so important that citizens choose, that we choose what we do, then why should we allow for the federal government to implement physician-assisted suicide across the country, which is what this debate is about? States should have the right to choose, and choosing is so important in this debate.
48 seconds. 0.5. Con.
Josh, I'm supposed to say names.
The Hippocratic Oath is a promise taken by physicians stating that they will uphold ethical standards. The oath specifies that the primary duty of physicians is to first do no harm, and it also specifically says that doctors shall give no deadly medicine to anyone if asked, according to Source A. The oath is a guideline for all physicians throughout the world, and physician-assisted suicide completely disregards everything the document is about. Allowing PAS to be legalized would be a total negligence regarding the oath that doctors take to do their best to heal and help patients. Doctors make their living off healing, and execution is quite the opposite. A doctor-patient relationship is based off credence and confidentiality, which allows for the best and most effective care to be given. Physician-assisted suicide being legalized would complicate this relationship and would be totally against all ethical guidelines stated within the oath. A doctor's job is to protect patients and administer appropriate care. The oath helps to preserve both the patient's and doctor's honor and dignity, and legalizing PAS would be in great disinterest of everything that the Hippocratic Oath stands for.
Think about how many years doctors have to go through school. They complete like years and years of college and medical school and residency, and this can take up to 15 years. They learn about like the parts of your body, and they also learn about procedures that are meant to save people, not kill them. And once they complete the Hippocratic Oath, it's their final checkpoint. It's a sign that all of their studies will be over soon. It's proof that all the doctors will put all the knowledge that they learned about healing to use. It ensures that each patient is protected by the doctor's best judgment. So if there's no oath, then what's going to keep them to their best judgment in other situations too? Legalizing physician-assisted suicide would mean breaking down the Hippocratic Oath because they can't exist together. If there's no longer a rigid oath that forces them to use their powers to heal and not harm, there's nothing forcing them to their best judgment. And even if a civic right to suicide did exist, suicide and assisted suicide are very different things. It's really wrong for a doctor to use all of their years of healing knowledge to kill. The oath speaks of treating to the best of one's ability. It would be a fine line to consider murder as treatment. We cannot trivialize everything the Hippocratic Oath stands for. It was written for a reason.
2+ rebuttal.
Okay,
So-
Who's gonna
So,
get-
I got it.
You got
The oath, or the point is to amend the oath to exist for terminally ill patients only, not to provide it for people that are depressed or struggling economically. The two can coexist if we draw a line right at where if someone's terminally ill, they can have physician-assisted suicide, but not someone else.
Yeah, it's also important to note that doctors, when someone's terminally ill, they can't use their tens of years of training because they're simply, it's part of being terminally ill. It is. I mean, there's no cure to it. The oath is like 1,500 years old. It was created in a time where there was never really a situation where someone would have a terminally ill disease. Like, you basically, I mean, the normal lifespan was like 30 back then. So clearly we need to change our rules and guidelines for the times, just as we change our legal system for the times. So that's really why physician-assisted suicide should be.
58 seconds.